Here are 3 stock reductions. 2 of them are made with store-bought stock and 1 is made with homemade stock. Can you tell which one is which? Until I read about the idea of buying stock in Sola's book, it never occurred to me to try such a crazy thing. Sure, I bought stock when I was a young and inexperienced cook. You know, that stuff sold in boxes. But you can't make a pan sauce out of that. It barely has any gelatin. So at some point in my life, I started making stock and that was that. But maybe my lousy experience with store-bought stock doesn't reflect today's reality. Maybe now, after the bone broth trend took over the United States, it is actually possible to buy decent stock in the store. The stock I decided to try is this Roli Roti brand sold in the refrigerated meat section of my store. Here's what attracted me to it. It doesn't contain any salt, so there is a possibility that it could work for pan sauces. To make a pan sauce, the stock has to be reduced so much that it can easily become oversalted if it contains any salt to begin with. The only ingredients in this brand are beef and carrots or chicken and carrots. Given the hefty price tag of $7 for a 3-cup container, there was some hope that enough bones were used to give the stock enough gelatin that it won't all just evaporate in the pan before turning syrupy. Since the most important quality of stock for the purposes of a pan sauce is its gelatin behavior, let's talk about the biggest misunderstanding people have about it. Gelatin is what you get when you heat the collagen in the meat. Collagen is like the rubber that holds animals together. It's an extremely tough material. It's in the bones, in the cartilage, in the skin, and in the meat. Once you melt all this tough collagen into gelatin, it has 2 properties that are of interest to us cooks: solidifying solids in cold state and making liquids more viscous in hot state. But gelatin is a very dynamic thing. The longer you heat it, the weaker its first property becomes. At some point, the gelatin will completely lose its ability to solidify at cold temperatures. If you are making an aspic, a cold meat jello thing, this can be a problem. But for pan sauces, it's not a problem at all. We actually do want the gelatin to denature a bit so that the sauce stays syrupy but doesn't congeal as quickly on the plate. So now that we know how gelatin works, let's reduce my 2 store-bought stocks and compare them to my homemade one. The chicken stock actually looks gelatinous, which I'm not used to seeing in a store-bought stock. That's cool. The beef one is more liquid, but that's understandable. The container says it was simmered for 48 hours. After that long, the gelatin can lose all its solidifying power. The chicken was only simmered for 24 hours. For comparison, I simmered my stock for only 4 hours. All right, so let's put them to the test. I'll start with half cup of stock. Let's reduce them and see if we can get a syrupy consistency that we are looking for in a pan sauce before all the water evaporates. This is looking really good. Texture-wise, it's night and day from what you get from a box. I'd be happy with any of them in a pan sauce. But how do they taste? Roli Roti chicken stock is pleasantly chickeny and very tasty. It's like my blonde chicken stock that's made from raw chicken. The only difference is that mine is more well-rounded in terms of smell because I use a ton of aromatics, not just carrots. But given that it takes absolutely no time to make it, this is very impressive. Roli Roti beef stock looks very brown, but doesn't taste roasted at all. It's very aggressively bovine. This could be just me, but I have a strange relationship with this flavor. I love browned beef. I mean, who doesn't? But beef that wasn't brown tastes unpleasantly gamey to me. I know that gamey is a silly term that people use to describe meat that doesn't taste like beef, so it's funny that beef tastes gamey to me. I think what I mean to say is that I am not loving the smell by itself, but once it's slightly masked by other ingredients, I would be perfectly fine with it. I have a similar problem when I make my own beef stock for dishes like borscht. I don't like the stock by itself, but once all the other ingredients are added, it's great. Okay, so now let's taste my homemade reduction. Texture-wise, it's the same as the store-bought ones, but flavor-wise, it's explosive. This really tastes Maillard reaction-y. If you don't know what this term means, watch this video from the Minute Food channel. The stock is not chickeny, it's not beefy, it's generally meaty, toasty, sweet, and acidic. Of course, it makes sense because I browned the chicken and the vegetables, and the store-bought stock didn't. But here's the good news. When you're making a pan sauce, your stock is not the only player in this Maillard reaction game. The whole idea of a pan sauce is that you are using stock to pick up the brown bits left over in the pan after searing some meat. Sure, the sauce made with homemade stock is bolder and more complex, but the pan sauce made with this store-bought stock is still delicious. If I was only buying one bottle of the stock, I'd buy the chicken one. It's much more versatile. You can use it to deglaze the pan after any animal. Sure, it's a bit chickeny and a bit light in color, but you could mask it with a bit of tomato paste, a splash of soy sauce, and a splash of balsamic vinegar. The beef stock will be harder to mask. The only place I can see it is in a beef dish. Okay, so now that you understand the quality trade-offs, let's compare the time and cost of all these stocks. This is slightly difficult because the prices will vary store to store, and how long it takes you to cut up your chicken will vary person to person, but you'll get the idea. All the prices here are per cup of strained but unreduced stock. This way we're comparing apples to apples since the store-bought stock doesn't come reduced. I'll post my price and time calculations below the video in case you want to see what assumptions I made, but here is one that I need to explain a bit. The reason that I put 7 minutes of passive time for Roli Roti is that you'll need to reduce it if you want to use it in pan sauces, and that's roughly what it takes per cup to get it to the same state as my homemade stock reduction. People get very upset with me for trashing the chicken meat after making the stock. They feel that either I should eat it or only use bones. Here's the deal with bones. If I were to buy beef bones or veal bones for stock, they would cost me $4 per pound at my store. But a whole chicken only costs $3 per pound. So cost-wise, chicken with meat is actually cheaper than buying bones alone. I think it's also tastier. You could reduce that even more if you buy your chickens at Costco. If you want free chicken bones, you could of course save them whenever you roast the chicken to eat, but it takes a lot of space in your freezer to accumulate enough to justify making stock. To replace my 2 chickens minus the breasts, you'll need all the bones from 4 whole chickens. This eliminates the possibility of making stock whenever you want to. Sure, I save the bones from my roasted chickens, but I usually supplement them with at least 1 whole chicken so that I can make stock whenever I want to. Yes, you can roast the chicken bones just like I roast chicken parts, but flavor-wise, I find the stock that contains all parts of the chicken to be tastier. So, where does this leave us? If you are a busy person, especially one who doesn't work from home, I seriously think you can buy a good quality bone broth and just use that. Roli Roti is the only company I tried, but I bet there are other ones out there. You can do a 5-minute test just like I did to assess its quality. Boil down half a cup of stock until it's syrupy and taste it. Somehow the English language loves to create controversy when it comes to liquids. Some people say that stock should only have bones, and a broth is fortified stock that has both meat and bones. I'm not aware of this distinction in French, Spanish, or Russian, but maybe they do exist, I don't know. It reminds me of the latest controversy of almond milk or oat milk. I hear that dairy producers of America don't want us to use the term milk for liquids that didn't come out of a boob. The reason I'm telling you all this is so that you don't leave me comments with, actually, what you made is not stock, it's broth, and what you bought is not broth, it's stock. Look, who cares? As long as it has enough gelatin and tastes good. Here are more thought-provoking culinary videos for you to check out, and if you are ever in the Boston area, maybe I'll see you in one of my classes.